When I say the words overmold, if you've been around disc golf for a while, the first thing that probably comes to your mind is MVP Disc Sports and their two companies, MVP and Axiom. Axiom being the colored rims, MVP is just black and white. But they make these three discs, which are kind of their staples. The Envy, the Hex, and the Pyro. However, they're not the first or the only company to make overmold discs. The first company actually was Gateway Discs, I believe, with the Odyssey, which they've recently brought back into production. Other companies like Latitude 64 with their Fuji and some other discs have also made overmolds. And you even have companies doing something kind of adjacent like Clash Discs and this Lotus, for instance, where they kind of have an undermold. It's their tone technology. But one company who you might know has made these discs in the past, if you're an OG in disc golf, because this was one of Paul Macbeth's favorite most used discs when he won, I think, his first 3 or 4 world championships, is Innova. Innova made overmold discs, and they still actually make them. And they're not only in one plastic like I thought, but we'll get into that. They make the Nova, 2300. Big shout out to Jeff, who gave this to me at the Discmania Challenge this year, because he heard that I only had these two, because I said that in a video on Banana Froth way back when. Big shout out to Jeff. They also make the Atlas, a straight mid-range, and the Avatar. A mid-range that they say combines the Lion, the Rock 3, and, remember it, oh, the Atlas. Because it's overmold, it's got a little bead under here, kind of looks like a bigger Discmania Gremlin, which was an Innova-made Discmania disc. And these are all in the XT mixed plastics, even though I've seen the Atlas in a Champion overmold plastic and the Avatar in a Star-like one. The interesting thing is MVP does own a patent on, I think, the overmold technology that they use. That doesn't mean all overmold technology. They use a very specific core and outer mold, which I'll put on the screen here, where the core kind of stays the same for a bunch of discs, and then they just put an outer mold around it. However, one of the interesting things I saw was someone asking me on Reddit, what's like the XT Nova? Because on Reddit, they showed a picture of the flight plate just basically completely cracked off of this outer rim. Now, Innova says that the way that they make these is with compass points, these 4 injection points on the bottom, and that they make the flight plate and then the outer rim gets injected around or over that main flight plate, and you can see kind of what they're talking about in that picture. But this is a very different way to make the injection than MVP, where you can see kind of around the sides, okay, like right here, there's an injection point. I'll make sure to have a good video of that. And they have those kind of all around the discs where it's injecting an outer rim over the core of the mold. So today I want to see how good these Innova overmold discs are by playing 9 holes at my local course here at Owl's Den with one of Paul Macbeth's OG best discs, and honestly likely something that the Luna was kind of based around, was the flight that he loved around the Nova. Maybe that's a comparison to do with the future. The Atlas, which Dave Dunapace himself, one of the owners of Innova and on the Innova Pro Review, says is the best forehand mid-range, which honestly kind of just feels and looks like an MD3 that Innova made, which is similar to the Chariot that is run right now at Infinite Discs, and honestly pretty similar to a Discmania MD3. The shoulder's a little bit high on it, and they all feel a little bit deep just because of how stiff they all are forced to feel. And the Avatar, which is a pretty interesting combo. It's definitely not a one-for-one comparison with these three. I just wanted to bring them out as a little bit of a reference. And today, if we can't shoot 4 down or better with these guys, for every stroke worse than that, we'll put one of these in a new giveaway bin, which you'll learn more about soon. Hole 1 is 276 straight away. I'm gonna warm up by just giving each of these an additional throw, but I think my actual throw will be slight force over with the Avatar because we have a little bit of this wind. And seeing how it threw compared to that Pyro initially, I think it's probably a step between the Pyro and the Reactor, maybe more similar to a Balance, but with that bead, I don't really know what's gonna happen. Throw the Nova first to warm up and just really see how glidey and pushy it is. I mean, I don't think it's quite as glidey as a Luna, but that is absolutely parked. That is kind of what you want from that style disc, and I can see why Paul liked it. The Atlas I will try on a forehand. I will say all of these, Innova says that they have a stiffer middle and a more rubbery outside, and I definitely feel that. The feel is actually pretty good because of how soft the outside is. Try the Atlas on a forehand. A little bit of hyzer should pop up a bit. Okay. That's not bad. The shot result was really good. Hole 3 we'll have another opportunity to do a little ace run on the forehand and see if I can't focus up on that release. Avatar here, a little turnover, flex it at the basket, hopefully start out with a bang. Fade. Oh wow, that is actually not close to the pyro. It's kind of like the rock 3, maybe even a touch straighter. I thought I actually threw that on an ace line and it landed way right at the basket. But then again, if you've watched the channel before, you know I think like a bunch of stuff is on an ace line and it's not even close. And if you haven't watched the channel before, prepare yourself for that and please subscribe. Solid result from the Atlas. The warm-up shots with the MV, oops, too bad. Pyro and Hex were all good. Seeing this versus the flight that I just got with that Avatar definitely makes me feel like it's a little different. Oh, and the Nova I thought got to the basket, but it was actually pretty short. I do remember from what I've heard, because I've just got into disc golf in early 2022, so I wasn't around during this Macbeth era, the Nova era, but I remember people talking about this as if this was his upshot disc, not necessarily his main driving putter. Obviously it could be both, and probably was, but it is very domey and a little deeper than the Luna was. Honestly, the profile is kind of like a more beveled P2, kind of between P1 and P2. I'm hoping the grippiness of the outside edges helps it catch in the chains more. I'm trying to find a spot where my pinky isn't resting on this little compass point, this little nub, because it's honestly a little uncomfortable. Good glide, 1, through 1. Hole 2 is definitely one of the harder birdies on the course, especially with the mid-range. It's 375 to the basket. You kind of got to navigate this gap and move to the right. Luckily, since the wind was pushing this way on hole 1, it's not going to be a tail left to right. So if you put it on turn as a mid-range with a little bit of glide, the wind should actually help carry it over. Man, I am finding it pretty interesting that every time I pick these up, I'm like, it's hard to find, well, not super hard, but when you're spinning it around and grabbing it, I found my fingers navigating towards these kind of compass points. And what's interesting about those points is, if you can see, they're actually a little raised up. So there's like, I wouldn't personally choose to put my finger there because I don't feel like I'm getting a good grip of the flight plate or the rim. But the Atlas I think is the right call for the turnover here. Honestly, it feels just like an MD3. Might be a little more understable than that, but the feel is just like that with a very grippy outside edge and a pretty stiff flight plate. That difference is pretty cool, but I wonder if the flex that the outer edge can give that the middle doesn't is what causes some of the cracking that I've heard about. I haven't seen too much, but definitely hear about it. Keep drifting. Oh man, okay. So the tailwind helped keep it a little stable. It's got down there. Didn't hate that. Very straight disc, very minimal fade too for being new. Try the Avatar too. Well, that's not good. And I do think the Nova, not quite enough disc, but we can have fun. Oof, yeah, definitely too slow. The Nova's interesting. The flight is very straight to understable, and I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just deeper, and so I tend to get worse releases with it with my little baby hands. But I don't see a tremendous amount of glide in the disc. It's not an anti-glide putter. It's not a putter that is significantly less glidey than others, but I think from when this came out, which is this year, to now, putters just seem to have continually gotten glidier and glidier and glidier, and that seems to be what people like. And the Nova just doesn't seem to have that for me yet in terms of the push with the glide. It's glidey and slow, maybe kind of like the Artifact from Infinite Disc, which recently came out. I thought it would go so far because of how much it glides, but it's kind of in between a catch disc and a putter, which kind of makes it an upshot putter. And I can see that for this disc as well, because this is a decent bit shorter than I would have expected to have landed, and that happened on the first shot too. But we might have a nice window to putt through, and I'm actually enjoying these more than I thought I would. The XT plastic might make a difference compared to getting them in a premium mixed plastic, and maybe Jeff did something to this Nova to make it not glide super much, but I don't think it's supposed to be the farthest flying disc. I also think I may there be conflating like far flying putter and glidey putter, because it does seem to glide, as in stay in the air for a while. It just doesn't seem to go as far as I would think for how long it's staying in the air, which is what I recognize from the Glitch or the Spore or any other kind of catch or catch hybrid disc. But it is a slot that could be pretty useful, honestly, in a lot of people's bags. Oh. Hole 3, little forehand hole. The more it grows in, the less you see the basket by the tee pad, and it's only like 215, so you gotta be able to see the basket just in case, you know what I mean? We're gonna be throwing the forehand with the Avatar, nope, with the Atlas. And then I think turnover with Nova also works great, but our wind is kind of shifting a little. Now, instead of being a head left to right, it's a little head right to left. Opportunity for a birdie here, but this is one hole I'll always try to ace run, and if it's really bad, I won't tell you that I was trying. Drop in, drop in. Oh, wow, it didn't push it all right. Okay, that fly's pretty good for a mid. Definitely wouldn't say, as Dave said, who owns Innova DISCS, that it's the best forehand mid-range. If I'm being completely honest with you, one of the better ones in that category is the Hex, and that's also partially evidenced by the fact that Germ didn't throw that thing on forehand at all, and Germ throws the Hex all over the place on forehand. So I'll throw this real fast just to see if, you know, the ace would have come with the Hex. No, it does come out cleaner though. I do recognize that, and I think that's the shoulder is flatter. It was a worse shot though, so maybe Dave's onto something. Nova. Oh no! What did that bounce out? Oh. Well, I can see why Paul Macbeth liked that disc. That's so rude. All right, Avatar. Let's see how you are on the forehand. Okay, it did flip up and roll a little more. They feel equally okay to me on the forehand, if I'm being honest. Oh, I can't wait to watch that back because I couldn't see the basket. I just thought it was close. And I guess that's how you know when I think an ace is actually close, because I shut up about it. I didn't say a single thing. At least it was a beautiful shot. I do find it pretty nice to putt with this thing. I think the outside rim and the stiffer flight plate is something a lot of premium plastic throwers can get behind. Hole 4. Now it's feeling more right to lefty even than tailwind. Should be helpful for pushing something into the chains. And it's 259 feet, which I think is a great distance for the Avatar. If I was throwing the Pyro, or what I thought this would be, 5402, Pyro's 5402.5, I would throw it honestly flat to a touch of flex, as soft as I want to throw it. But this, I'm going to try to throw flat to a touch of hyzer, just to get the same result. That's pretty sweet. That stayed straighter way longer than I expected. I will say, I do think the gyro on all these really mellows out the fade on all of them. Even compared to the MVP ones that I've had. I don't know if it's just the shape or what, or maybe it's the shape itself is a little more mellow, but these all just don't seem to push on a fade at all, even when the wind is helping it to. Try the Atlas on a forehand again, straight at it. Yeah. I do think it's just the shoulder thing being a little higher. What I mean by that is on the Hex here, when I'm throwing with my forehand grip, sorry, I smashed my finger, so, but this finger is touching the flight plate at the bottom there. And when I'm throwing the other one, it's kind of off it a little bit. It's really hard to see, but it's like off it a little bit. It's kind of like there. Whereas here, I feel like I have really good control over the flight plate. And maybe I can just shove this higher up into my grip, but then I feel like it's gonna catch on this part of my hand. Might just be a small hands guy problem, to be honest with you. But having control over the rim and the flight plate in that middle finger, I think is what helps this have a much cleaner release. But the wobble just really turned over for the Atlas and the Nova. Ow, okay. So there, I kept my finger on the compass point as I threw it, and I kind of dug underneath my nail there. The pressure was just interesting as it was ripping through my hand, so don't recommend holding on to those little compass points when you're throwing these discs. Well, do it for fun on like a little short shot, because it was a weird feeling I've never experienced on throwing a disc before, was the pressure that I felt as it came through, just digging into my finger. That was kind of weird. 3 through 4, pretty solid start so far. Hole 5, 325 feet, 99 meters. A slight right to left, meaning throwing up this right side gap, if you expose the flight plate, it's gonna get pushed a little too far left. That is the nicest gap though, to be honest with you, and I think the Atlas, throwing it on a backhand, is the play. Oh gosh, I pulled it. Trying a little too hard on that one. Good thing we have the Nova for some pretty sweet up shots for the Avatar. Yep. So, if you want a real quick, real life example, if you watch my video from last Friday, I talked about 3 cues that help me throw more consistently, like stop hitting lines as much. That first one, I was really just focused on the grip and ripping it through the gap. That second one, I was thinking about throwing when I was still back here, kind of throwing the disc behind myself, throwing while I'm turned away, and then I ended up hitting the gap pretty perfectly. Definitely not a 100%er tip, but it's been really helpful for me as someone who tends to over-rotate my upper body on those shots to throw while I'm turned around. That cue has been really helpful for me to hit some more lines, even those tighter ones. And that second shot with that Avatar was pretty sweet. Drop. Oh, holes 2 and 5 are the two most challenging holes on the course here, so not mad to take pars on both of them. Let's just keep playing clean. And I will say, the more I've thrown this for upshots, the more I really want a disc that doesn't have those little compass points, because honestly it's been semi-frustrating to always pick up the disc and have to move my hand and then move it too far and then have to move it back because of where those compass points are. Not a big deal, something that just like gets a little under my skin though, but to have a disc that has a base plastic outer feel with a more premium inside feel, this still is base feeling, but to get that combo, I think would be absolutely incredible if it's at all possible. So to any companies who have the possibility of making something like that, please do, and send me 10 of them. 265 feet straight ahead, Mando to the left. Forehand with the Atlas, I think, is the play again. I'm gonna trust that it's gonna wobble up a little, so more hyzer than I think. Man, that flight is really good once it gets stable. I mean, that is really money. That is probably just under 300 feet, super straight. I just can't give it enough for the wobble, unfortunately. Uh-oh. 3 holes to play, 1 more birdie and no bogeys to shoot the score that I need to not give any of these away. I will still have to put something in the giveaway though, because of what you'll see in the next video. And this next hole is a headwind 340, which is not going to be easy with these mid-ranges, but I think the Avatar, or the Atlas honestly, have a pretty good shot. The Avatar, I've thrown a couple more seconds with it, and it seems a little slower than the Atlas. I don't know why. It's just not really ripping through the air like I would have expected. Maybe it's the bead, but we got 340 straight ahead. Wind is, oh, maybe more left to right than even headwind, which would be really good for the Avatar or the Atlas. I think the Avatar is nice though, because if I throw it and trust it on a touch of Anheuser, I think it'll turn for longer than I would have expected before I started filming this video, but it will start to get back to a hyzer's edge, back to a stable edge. The Atlas I think could just stay over, but both I think could definitely work on this shot. Ah, too much. It is getting back, but not fast enough. I kind of pulled it. Wow, that kind of went far though. Dang, disappointing shot there. That's money. Oh my. So I slowed down a little and didn't quite throw it as hard, and slow, smooth, and smooth is juicy. Go Nova, go! Wow, that is right on the line, but does not go nearly as far as like, here, I'll just throw the MV for reference, just to show you what I mean about it being slower. Like I can throw that thing. I think putters are getting closer to mid-ranges. Nova, Atlas, NV. Oh man. I definitely did throw the NV a little harder than both of these two, but I also didn't feel as comfortable throwing these two as hard as I threw that NV, which could be a comfortability thing, could be this technology. My guess is it's a depth and shoulder thing. The shoulders, I don't know if it's because of the technology, all feel high on these 3 discs. The Avatar actually is the lowest, which is maybe why I'm the most comfortable actually throwing it hard, which I do think makes the most sense based off all my theories so far. Oh man, left again. I've loved the flight of all these discs. I've actually liked that they're slower feeling. So sometimes I feel like with a disc that's too glidey or too fast, it takes a little more work to slow it down, whereas these, I can throw comfortable power and they slow down a little for me, which I don't know if this was the intended purpose, but I do like them. They feel a little old school, of course, and this Nova is a pretty sweet upshot disc. However, these compass points are a really big turnoff for me onto liking these, because, I mean, it's just how high it's raised. my hand always kind of grips close to one, and then I shift it a little, and then it's close to the other, and if I spread out my fingers at all and then grip, I'm like going past it. Not a fan of those at all. And that would be one of the main things kind of keeping me from bagging them. The forehand is not as good on this disc for me as what I did expect, or what I was told. I expected it to be just as good as it was just because of how uncomfortable it felt in the forehand initially. The Avatar I didn't expect to be my favorite, but I really like throwing this thing. So we'll throw it again. 283 feet, headwind, try to hyzer it close to the basket and get a bird. Fade, 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 fade it all. What? So interesting. I was very confident in the shot as it left my hand, and it is way shorter than I thought, and wasn't as overstable. Oh, and it's a bogey. So interesting. Group just snagged that tee pad, so we'll take the bogey and move along. Meaning that right now I'm 2 under par. 2 of these, both the mids, are going into the giveaway. I'm keeping this Innova for myself for a bit, especially because I might make a video of it versus a Luna, if you guys want. If this video gets 750 likes, I'll make the Innova versus Luna video. But if I birdie this one, only one of these is going in this giveaway, and you'll see what that's for in the next one. I think it's gonna be pretty fun, to be honest with you. Hole 9, 288, dead ahead. I'm so confused about why these aren't going as far as I feel like they are out of my hand, and then I throw the Envy and it's like makes sense to me, and I throw the Hex and it makes sense to me. So if anyone has any ideas as to why that is, let me know. My only thought would be that it's actually denser in the middle than the outside, so it's almost anti-gyro, even though it's a little bit softer on the edge, which is actually cool because you want that sometimes. Like I'm saying, for these up shots, I want it to not be anti-dome because it's more comfortable as a putter, but anti-gyro where it's a little denser in the middle and lighter on the outside is kind of cool, and that's how they feel. I didn't want to claim that because it might not actually be true, but it is something that kind of makes sense to me. So I don't know how much making sense we're doing on this channel, but we'll throw the Atlas on a backhand, finish it strong. I wish I could cut that, but I can't. It's too funny. Parked. Should have just thrown the Avatar like I knew I should have. These are fun to play with though. I don't know what it is about them. I'm very endeared to them, and I do enjoy throwing them. They're just not quite MVP gyro, and they're not. Like, I don't think they're even supposed to be. They're all very straight. They just don't go as far, which is, it's very odd, if I'm being honest. Nova. Get off that tree. Oh! Yeah, I finally forehanded it well. I just had to not throw a dry forehand. Okay, 2 down it is. Both of the mids go into my Bedanza's box of goodies, or Bedanza's bounty box. Bedanza's bounty box actually doubly works because it is a bounty, and you'll find out how to win them in the next video. I don't teasing that a lot, but we'll watch it. Why not? It's gonna be incredible. If I do say so myself. Oh, gross. And just like that, another bogey. However, I do need to keep this Nova for potential future reviews. Let me know. 750 likes, like I said. These really did confuse me a lot. So instead of the Nova, you guys will be getting a new unthrown banana butt golden banana PA3. Forgot I even had a golden banana, but here we are. There are some of those on my side on Infinite. Snag my discs on Infinite if you'd like. Big shout out to them as my main sponsor. Also where you can snag these discs. I'll have them linked down below if they're in stock, and all your other disc golf needs. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and subscribe. That's where my eyes should go.